Welcome this day to In Search for Wellness. Today we are going to prepare fermented, we're going to ferment our porridge from the scratch. These days we have difficulties in getting the correct maize flour, which has no aflatoxins. And so it becomes very difficult to make fermented porridge with flour which is made for ugari because the grains are very large. For making porridge, you need at least 3 grades finer from the normal maize meal that we get from the shelves. So what I want to do is to grind my maize using a breader. The only unfortunate thing is that I'll not be able to use the coat of the maize, which is usually very tough and cannot be ground to fine flour by the breader. So I'm going to bread all this maize in the breader, and I'll sieve it out. And after sieving, I'll be left with a suspension of cornstarch, of the starches of the young maize. And that is that's the fluid and the suspension that I'm going to use to mix with the millet flour to ferment our porridge. So I'll just place my maize in the breader. That is enough. I don't want to overload the breader. And then I'll add just normal tap water. I'll be careful with how much water I use, because I want to I'll still use the same amount of water to warm it up in a water bath to facilitate the fermentation process. So I don't want to use excessive water. So I'll continue using the suspension water to grind all my maize. I have whipped my first portion of maize the first time, and I have returned the residue again in the breader. I'll add more water to whip it more, so that I try to get as much of the starch from the corn as possible. So I have my first portion of the suspension from the first portion of whipping, and now I'm going to sieve it also again. We are going to sieve it further. We are going to sieve it further like that, and I'm just going to press out all this water and this out from the sieve. And for the next portions of the maize, I'm going to use part of the water from the suspension, so that I do not end up with excessive water for fermenting our porridge. I've put my second lot of maize, and I'm using the suspension. I'm using the suspension, the Fermented water, the water that is above the starch from the corn, and so that I do not use excessive water. So I'll just use it to whip the maize. The stage. Let's stop it so that we can sieve it for the first time, and then we put it back so that I'm whipping the portions twice and reasoning them with the water and the suspension. I've finished grinding my maize, and now I have quite a portion of suspension of starch, and this fluid is the same. So this suspension is the same one that I'm going to use to prepare the suspension for Weeby. I use this Fermentation water, this suspension of the ground young maize. I'm going to use this suspension to mix my Weeby. I don't want to add any more water, so I don't have excessive voluminous of water, because I want to pour it into a 5-liter jerrycan, which I'll leave for 48 hours to ferment. I usually use this Weeby flour. I like this Weeby flour because I find it very clean. And even when I cook the porridge, it tastes very nice. It's from Pure Health, and I have liked it, and I've used it for many years. This is about half a kilo, and I'm going to add more so that we have about 3/4 of a kilo. We just add a little bit more. So I have here about 750 grams, slightly less than a kilo of Weeby flour, of millet, fine millet flour. And I'm going to use the suspension. I'm going to use my suspension to mix this flour. I'm going to use my suspension because I don't want to use more. I don't want to use any excess more water. And when I've thoroughly mixed the millet flour, I'll mix it again with the corn suspension in that stainless steel sufuria basin. And then I can warm it. I can warm it slightly with in a water bath. I'll not heat it directly on a hot burner. I'll not heat it directly on a gas burner because it may become heated and destroy my microorganisms, which will facilitate our fermentation process. So the good thing is that when you have fermented your porridge, this porridge, after putting it in the jar, in the can, I leave it for 48 hours. I'll leave it to ferment for 48 hours. And when it is fermented, I just transfer it into a smaller size bottles, and preserve it in the fridge. Preserve it in the fridge, and even in the fridge, you can use it slowly for the next 2 weeks. It cannot go bad. It is only the fermentation process which you stop. The fermentation process will stop because of the room temperature. My millet is well mixed now. My white corn suspension together with the millet suspension, and because it is at room temperature and I don't want to heat it directly, on a burner, I have placed it on a water bath of very hot water, so that I just raise the temperature slightly. It is just supposed to be just warm to the skin. It is supposed to be just slightly warm to the skin, because the good bacteria which is usually on the grains, the good bacteria starts working at around a temperature of 38 degrees centigrade. So it should not even be 40 degrees centigrade. It is, at times where you could have warm water, you feel it is warm. But when you put it on your skin, when you put it on your skin, on the skin, not on the palm of the hand, but on the skin of your hand, you realize that although it is warm, it has a heating effect. It have a heat to it. So that one may be at 40 degrees. But the best thing, obviously, is to have a thermometer with you, so that your temperature could be just at 38 degrees centigrade. When it is at, our body temperatures is usually at 36 degrees 36.5 degrees centigrade. And so when you put a little bit of water, if the water is about 38 degrees on my skin, it will be just slightly warm. And that is the correct way of determining your temperature. If the temperature is beyond that, it is hot, it will kill your bacteria. It will kill your good bacteria, and your porridge will not ferment. Your porridge will not ferment, but it will start molding. It will start molding, and it may produce a bad smell. So I'll just keep checking on it, and when it reaches the correct temperature, I'll just transfer it into my jerrycan. I'll just keep stirring it so that it does not heat locally, so that nowhere in the volume of this fluid, the suspension, that the temperature may reach 40 or 41 degrees centigrade. So while it is being heated on the water bath, I'll just keep stirring it, and checking, stirring and checking with the skin of my hand, on my hand. I don't have a kitchen thermometer, so I use the skin of my hand to check the temperature. I'm still testing our suspension for preparation for the fermentation process, and it is almost there. It's just a slight warmness, and I don't want it to become too hot for the dangers of spoiling the whole preparation by failure to ferment properly. With the correct temperature, with the correct cleanliness, you get a smooth fermentation in 48 hours. My suspension is now at the correct temperature, and I have removed it from the water bath. Now I will just transfer it into my 5-liter jerrycan. I'm just transferring it into this 5-liter jerrycan. Mixture to this 5-liter jerry can. I've transferred my porridge in this jerry can of 5 liter, and I'm going to leave it next to the fireplace. I'll leave it next to the fireplace for 48 hours. I'll leave it to stand for 48 hours. That means that is exactly 2 days. I will remove it because the young corn, the starch of young corn and the sugars of young corn, young maize ferment very, very quickly. Millet, fine millet, well ground, also ferments very, very quickly. After 48 hours, at least you have given me a good flavor for fermented porridge. But if I leave it to stay for 3 days or 4 days, it will be too curry, it will be too acidic, and some people may not be able to tolerate that kind of acidity. If one wanted to be very curry, one can leave it for 3 days. But I prefer to leave it for 48 hours. Thank you very much. We'll review it after 48 hours. Welcome to In Search for Wellness. It is now 48 hours after we put our fermenting porridge, fermenting suspension, the suspension that we made together 48 hours ago, and we poured the mixture, warm mixture at 38 degrees centigrade into this jerry can. Remember that we left this jerry can by this mixture by the fireplace, a warm place, so that fermentation process can go on without being heated. If you put it in a very cold place, even if you're so cold, fermentation may not take place properly because this process is temperature dependent. And so today, it is now 48 hours. We are going to check the process, how the process have gone, and like I said, I prefer 48 hours because then the porridge is a bit mild, it's not very aggressive. It is not very aggressive, and for people who have problem with acid in the stomach, it is still very gentle on the stomach. And when you start the process, it's important to put this lid very loosely. So that because the fermentation process releases gases, so that the gases can find a place of escape. I'll just pour out a portion of this because it is very difficult to see what is going on inside the jerry can. Let's see if we can see what is going inside the jerry can. You see, our mixture had mixed it a bit. So that is our mixture. You can see it is very clean. When it is fermenting down there, you can see there are no mold. There is no layers of mold on top. The surface of our fermenting suspension is very, very, very clean. It's just a clean fermentation process that is going on. It is very important to ensure that your porridge does not go through a molding process. How the temperature, we saw that the temperature, the cleanliness of your millet, if the millet is clean, the fermentation process will take place very well. We find that many times people buy flour in the marketplace and they don't know whether the millet was clean. They don't know how the grains were cleaned or dried up, or whether they were separated from dust and soil. And so you find that during fermentation process, you may not get a clean mixture, or your fermenting porridge may not really taste nice. Your fermenting porridge should have a clear and fine flavor. It should not have those muddy, dull flavors, which come because of fermentation process that has been interfered with. You find that if the flour is dirty, it was ground with particles of the husks. If There are other particles that were there, like gram seeds or bean seeds, especially the way they fall into the millet in the marketplace and they were ground together, not selected. If some of the grains were old and molding, you will find that when you ferment that porridge, it will not ferment smoothly and the flavor will not be okay, and even it may start molding during the process of fermentation. I'll cook some, and whatever remains, I'll preserve it in a bottle and keep it in the fridge. In the fridge, the fermentation process will slow down or it may stop, and then I can use it longer. It can stay in the fridge for about 2 weeks. That is our mixture. That's our mixture of the fermenting porridge. You can see how it looks like it is cooked porridge, because the fermentation process is also a cooking process, but it is not cooked. So it requires now to be put in hot water, boiling hot water, so that it can be cooked and people can enjoy. Look at it. On the surface of it, it is very, very clean, very, 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 very clean. You cannot see any molding particles. You cannot see any molding particles. It's just pure, clean, breaded. The starches have been breaded here now in the process of fermentation. During the fermentation process, the starches have been breaded together, and so we have a very, very, very clean mixture. So I'll just use this mixture and put it in hot water. I'll make porridge out of it, and then I will know whether I will know how far my fermentation has gone. But for 48 hours is enough next to the fire, is enough to ferment your porridge without making it too curry. And it is also good even for the children. It is very nice for the children. The children will love this kind of porridge, and it is not aggressive to the stomach. Fermentation is a very important process, and it is good if everybody can learn how to make their own fermented porridge, fermented products, without contamination with molds and toxins in their own kitchens. So I'll just go ahead and cook my porridge. Add this to the boiling water. I've introduced my fermented porridge into the boiling water. That was I have used about half a liter. That was a half a liter of fermented porridge, and into 2 liters of water. Aluminium sufuria distributes the heat very, very gently, without burning. We are going to cook this porridge for only 20 minutes after it has started boiling. It is going to boil for about 20 minutes. It's going to boil for about 20 minutes. You can see the porridge has started really catching up the heat, and it has really become very thick. Like we said, demonstrated in the other one, in the full video of cooking the fermented porridge. You can see it becomes, I've just added of that suspension, of the fermenting suspension, I only added about half a liter to 2 liters of water. And now you can see how thick it has become. And like I said, if you want it for eating with a spoon, it is okay. But if you want it for drinking from a cup, one may need to add some water, to regulate the thickness. So overall, to the mixture of half liter with 2 liters, I've added another 1 liter of water. So from half liter of my suspension of my fermenting porridge, I have added up again with about 3.5 liters of porridge. 3.5 liters of porridge of very good consistency. Yeah, you see, it is boils in a very good way. So we have about 3.5 liters of porridge of good consistency. The flavors that are coming already when the porridge is boiling like that, you can always detect the flavors coming out. Very, very nice flavors of fermented porridge, gently fermented porridge. If your porridge has stayed for 3 days, over 3 days or 3 days, you detect that those flavors that are coming from there can become even very sharp to the throat. So the acidity of the fermenting porridge can also become very, very aggressive, very, very acidic, and it may become too acidic for people. There are people who are not able to take fermenting porridge because at times it is too fermented. Over 48 hours, it is now turning it to full acid. For 3 days, 4 days, it becomes very, very, very curry, very, very, very sharp, that even when you are cooking, everybody in the house will know that you are cooking fermented porridge. But the flavors that are coming out now are very, very gentle. Very, very gentle. The flavor of gently fermented porridge, complete fermented porridge, but the grains and the starches have fermented, and it is just in a gentle way. It's a gentle way. Very, very nice way. And at this point, like I said, it is also good for the children. It's good for the children. The children cannot be harmed by it, and it will make all the nutrients that are not available to the cells bioavailable. My porridge now is ready. It's about 20 minutes now. I'll just switch the burners and transfer it into another sufuria. I'll just empty it and transfer it to another sufuria, or even put it in a thermos. You can also put it in a thermos so that it can be taken hot at any time anybody wants to take it. They will find it hot. A small cup here, and I just want to taste. I've realized that this porridge is very gently fermented. I have put 1 teaspoonful of sugar. I don't like sugar. I actually even take my fermented porridge, I take it without sugar. So I have tasted this porridge, and I've realized it is just well fermented. It is well fermented and gently fermented, especially for the family, for everybody in the family, and even for the young children. 48 hours of fermentation process is the best. But if anybody wants it to be more curry, it can be left to go to 3 days. Can be left to go to 3 days, more than 48 hours. Thank you so much. I encourage you to try this exercise in your home. Ensure that you get clean flour. If you can't get clean flour, if you're not satisfied with the flour that you get from the market, you can get your own grains from the market, wash them up and dry them in the sun and have it milled. When you take them for the milling, ensure that they mill it for you for 3 times. Let them mill it for you for 3 times so that it may be very, very fine. If they mill it once for you, it will be grainy like that one for cooking ugali. But let it be milled 3 times. Thank you very, very much for your participation. And I hope that this exercise is going to help you. Let me now taste my porridge. Yeah, it's very nice. Very, very, very nice. Very nice. Still very hot. I like mine a bit cold. Still very, very hot. But it is well fermented and the sugar enhances the flavor. It's a very, very healthy drink. A very, very good drink. Very refreshing and a very healthy drink. Especially in the afternoon, it's a very good drink instead of too much tea. Enjoy yourself and try this recipe for your family, and I trust everybody will like it. Everybody will like it. Thank you very much.